We're happy to have with us today Bonnie Claxton. She is another Lost Voices of Fentanyl mom. She had a son named John Christopher. He went by JC. So, Bonnie, if you would please share your story about your precious JC.
JC was born on 4th of July, 1999. My firecracker. Um, he he was my everything. He was my first boy.
Mhm.
He was everything to me. He was full of energy from the time he was born. Just couldn't stay still. I called him Froggy, so that was another nickname we had for him, was Froggy. Um, he he growing up, he was he was funny.
It's okay.
John had a energy about him that people were just drawn to. He loved everyone. He would help anyone that he could. He loved to cook. He loved to dance, music. He loved everything about life. Um, uh, I was a single mom raising three kids. John was the middle child. Um, it was very, very hard times for us. Their father wasn't involved in their life. John wanted his dad to give him attention. He didn't have that with his dad, and he wanted that so bad.
Mhm.
But I'm sorry,
It's okay. That it's real. So we want real. We don't want a mask. We want real.
growing. I had a very close family on my side. On their dad's side of the family, wasn't very close. His like I said, his dad wasn't around. His grandfather, nobody was really around for them, and he's got a little brother too, and my daughter. But we I struggled with that with him, having to see his heart broken, having to see, waiting for their father not showing up, all of that. Uh, John loved to cook. He used to make his my stepmom's dish, which we call picadillo in Spanish. It's just ground beef, tomatoes, onions, jalapenos. He really loved to cook. He loved to eat too. He would clean me out of the refrigerator. But it was he had to grow up really fast, and I hate that now that I think back. Um, he was kind
Was he your only boy?
No, I have a younger one.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. He was just the oldest of the boys, so it was my daughter is John, and then Nathan.
Mhm.
Um, he just he had to grow up really fast, and he just he was just the little man of the house. He was my little man. He did everything in place of a father to help me. Um, John's trouble started like right around 12 years old. Started experimenting with marijuana. Um, just that was just the start of it, and I had no idea about any what he was doing. He was in school. He played football from the time he was 12 up until he was about 14. Um, was not going to school. He struggled with school. He had to have one-on-one, and he couldn't get that, so he started skipping before he couldn't play football anymore. He started experimenting with Xanax. at a really young age. He had to cope, like he was trying to cope with like rejection. Um, so he was trying to numb himself from having to feel. Uh, and I found that out because he actually, with me and him, had a conversation about it. But my baby just he struggled. He struggled with that so bad. He started taking the Xanax. All that led to him getting in trouble with the law. Um, my son would take like 2 or 3 Xanax at a time that he would
Wow.
black out. He was in a highway speed chase when he was about 14, got in a wreck, couldn't remember. Got a call about that. Juvenile, we ended up in juvenile detention. That led to him being placed in a military school. In the military school, he learned a lot about drugs. It was there too. They would leave the premises at night. They were drinking. They were doing everything. He stayed there for a year. I didn't go see him for that year because I thought maybe it would help him, because if I showed up and he saw me, he would act out, because he would act out. They used to call me and, they would tell me, your son's acting out, but I wasn't there. I didn't work there, I used to not get very much sleep because I was always worried about phone calls. It was always a phone call. Anytime I had to answer, I knew something was wrong. It was the cops. It was something.
So did his father did his father know that these problems were going on at this time?
No, because he was
Just absent.
He was just absent. He showed up, Thanksgiving, wanted to be that kind of parent. He was absent a lot. And his father also was drinking. He was also doing drugs. John actually found out about cocaine through his father's grandfather. He was about 12, and I didn't find that out till, of course, later, after JC had passed away. His dad used to ask him for money. John got a job when he was 16, McDonald's, and his father would call and ask him for money for drugs.
That's hard.
Yeah. And my son would come to the bedroom, and me and him were really close. He could talk to me about a lot of things. Some things he wouldn't tell me because he was afraid that it would hurt me. And even though I knew, a part of me didn't want to hear those words come out of his mouth. So I would just tell him not to tell me. And I feel like I failed as a parent because I didn't see a lot of John's struggles. And now that I think back, there was a lot of signs. I worked a lot too. I worked about 12 hours a day. My daughter would be at the house, John, his little brother, and she would try to keep him at home, and he was getting in trouble. And I couldn't be home because I had to work. I had to put food on the table. And John would see me do that, and that's where it led to John to make a quick buck.
So he started dealing drugs?
It went. He started dealing drugs. I gotten home from work one day, and I had my little case for like diabetics, to check their blood sugar, stuff like that. And the dog had it, and I grabbed it. And when I grabbed it, all these baggies of like cocaine fell out. He came out of the bedroom, and he just looked at me. And mind you, this house that I had gotten, it was a 2-bedroom. My daughter had the bedroom, and the boys shared the other room. I slept on the couch so my kids could have their own rooms. But I seen that, and he froze, and I asked him what it was. And he just looked at me, and I slapped him because I was so mad at him, because that was supposed to be our castle, our security. And I was so angry at him that I gave him a choice to get right or for him to leave. And about that time, he was about 15. My son packed his stuff. Um, he was still on probation. I tried to reach out for help through them, and they were wanting to basically press charges on me for me abandoning him. And that wasn't the case.
So he chose to leave, but CPS was trying to press charges against you?
It was the probation. Juvenile probation. I tried to, get help for him through them. I was even during school, when he was at the school, I was there every morning, and I would sit in the parking lot to make sure he would show up for school. And I would catch him leaving. It was really hard. It was really hard with him, just dealing with all of that, and it was tough.
But, so when he packed up at age 15 and took off, where did he go?
To a friend's house. He went to a friend's house. I told him to come home. I told him that, we weren't going to have drugs in the house. We weren't going to do this. We weren't going to do that. I wanted him to be a kid. I wanted him to go to school. I wanted him to have a good life, a successful life. And he told me, okay. And I really think he just told me that just so that, I could hear what I wanted to hear.
Told you what you wanted to hear.
Yeah. So he did come back home. And again, I was at work, and John got in to a group with a few people that were just really bad. He ended up getting pulled over with some friends, and they had drugs in the vehicle. John ended up going back to juvie again. This is brought about, again, 15, 16. I get the call. He calls me, and he's telling me, Mom, I need you to go to my bedroom. I need you to open my closet. And above my closet, there is like an attic. I need you to push that, and I need you to grab everything that's in there, and I need you to put it outside. And I was like, what are you talking about? And mentioned something about a plug. I had no idea what a plug was. A plug is a dealer, I guess, where he was getting his drugs from. My son had guns in the attic. He had drugs of all sorts. Had my daughter helping me with that. And about that time, she was trying to graduate school. And I went in there and I got all that stuff and I put it outside and went and drove around for like 10 minutes. And I got back home and that stuff was gone. And I was wow. I was really angry with him. And it was just... So,
did he do that to protect you, like the dealer he was buying from? If he had not given up his stash of drugs, would that dealer likely...
I believe so.
Yeah. So he was protecting you and the rest of the family.
Yes. And John saw me struggle, so he was trying to help me. He had put money in my drawer one day, and as much as I needed it, I, as a mother, as a parent, not his friend, gave him that money back and told him that he needed to get a job and he needed to work just as hard as I did and earn an honest living. My daughter had told me that she thought my son was snorting cocaine one time. He was in the shower, and I told her to leave him alone. He's not doing drugs. Leave him alone. Da 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 da. My son was snorting Xanax in the bathroom. It got really bad. He ended up going to prison. He was 19 when he ended up in jail. He was actually driving, and a citizen was following him. My son was swerving. At that time, he was already him and his girlfriend were pregnant, and she was actually due to have their son like a month, within a month. So John actually pulled himself over because he knew that he said he needed to take a nap. So the person that followed him stayed behind him. She called the cops. They ended up pulling my son out of the vehicle. Again, he had pills in his pocket. And it was 3 Xanax. So that's what wound him up going to jail. And he also had other drugs. So he got a 2.5 year sentence for that. I'm jumping all over the place.
Okay.
He went to prison, and that's when I found out. He told me himself that he was taking the Xanax because he wanted to numb himself from having to feel anything. He didn't want to deal with it. He was scared to come home whenever his release date was coming up, and I told him, I was like, "Oh, son, you're gonna be okay." Da da da. Again, I didn't know what he was talking about. I thought he was just scared to come home. He was scared that he was going to fall back into addiction. And he got out September 27th of 2021. And he had a detainer. We had hired an attorney to help him with all his stuff. The lawyer somehow made that detainer disappear. So while John got out, he still had like a blue warrant. So he was on parole. I got him a job in the oil field. He loved it very, very much. But he couldn't get his license because of the detainer that he had still. It would have popped up. So he ended up losing his job because of that, him not being able to get his license. Depression started to sink in. He couldn't take care of his son, couldn't pay bills. He was living with me at that time here. And he'd lost his uncle Johnny, and they were going to Big Spring to go have a benefit for him and raise some money. And this is in Big Spring. That's like an hour and a half from where I live. And he ended up going to a party after that. And he was looking for Xanax. I thought he was clean, getting home from prison. He got him, and he got a laced fentanyl. It was April 2nd. I got the call. No, it wasn't April 2nd. It was April 2nd is the night that he was at that party, and they took a pill, and my son had passed away when he was there with a bunch of friends. They moved my son's body from one place to another. They didn't call 911.
They knew he was already deceased and they didn't call. Do you think that's because they were afraid of what happened to them?
I really don't know. I heard a few stories. But when I tried to talk to them, they had stripped my son naked, took his clothes, took his watch, took his wallet, everything.
His friends did that?
Yeah.
Wow.
John was bleeding from his nose, and he was purple. By the time that they had called the ambulance, and mind you, that party that he was at is a mother that was throwing a party for her 14-year-old son and had drugs galore, alcohol, and I have the video of that, and you could see my son looking around like something was bothering him. There was a lot of kids there, but so they ended up taking his clothes off, the girl that he was with that night, she had called his friends and told them that she needed help, that John wasn't breathing. John was changing different colors. So instead of calling, they turned him over on the floor. They tried to dress him. And 3 of them moved him from that house, pulled him out. They ended up hitting the back of his head. He had scratches. And they let him just lay there on this ottoman at the second house, and nobody called 911. They put towels on him to try to cool him off. So they finally called the paramedics. They showed up. They worked on my son for 27 minutes. They got a faint pulse back. My son ended up in the hospital April 3rd. I ended up showing up over there from here 2-something in the afternoon. I thought that my son had gotten beat up. I didn't know what was going on. Called my dad, had my dad go to the hospital, my daughter, my youngest son, and I'm getting there, and the nurses trying to talk to me, telling me that, JC has tubes, this and that, and I was like, okay. I walked into the emergency room, the room they had him in, and my son had tubes everywhere. He was swollen. I remember the doctor telling me they had narked him 7 times. I didn't know what that had meant. John had an acute cardiac arrest. He had acute pulmonary edema, acute global brain damage. I thought he was going to wake up. I didn't know, and I didn't know anything what's going on. They ended up moving him up to ICU, and the medicine that they were giving him was causing him to have nosebleeds. You could see his eyes just cracked and just yellow and just fluid coming out. He was hemorrhaging. I had to make a decision to let him, to keep him on life support, or let him go. I had to let my baby go, because if he had another cardiac arrest, they were going to go in and break ribs. It was going to be ugly. But part of me wishes that I didn't have to do that. I wish they would have never brought him back, because he was already gone. It was really hard for me to go through that. I had a lot of guilt, because I thought maybe I didn't leave him on life support too long. I didn't know. My father had already known that John was completely brain dead. They had removed the ventilator to show him that once they removed it, there was nothing. And the friends that he was with, they never came. They messaged me on Messenger, asking me how John was. I was so angry, because at that time I didn't have answers. I didn't know what had happened to John. And about 3 months later, I had received John's autopsy report, and he had 2.3 of illicit fentanyl, 1.1 of norfentanyl. He had alcohol, a little bit of THC, but I didn't know what fentanyl was at the time. I had no idea. When I talked to the detectives, I asked him what that was, and he got on his laptop and he Googled fentanyl. And I was really upset. I asked him if he didn't know what that was, then he had no business telling me. I could do that at home from, my laptop. I went into a state where I was really angry, and I wanted to know what happened to my baby.
So this party that he went to, did I understand correctly that it was hosted by the mother of a 14-year-old, and she supplied them with drugs and alcohol?
Yes, ma'am.
Did it?
And
Okay. Did anything ever happen to her?
No, I told the detectives, they said that they were going to look into it, that they were going to call CPS. I asked them about what about moving John's body, tampering with a corpse. They didn't do anything. I emailed them, I called them, I texted them, I called the chief of police, I went to the judge. I got a call from the chief of police after I had contacted the judge, and that was it. They never did anything at all. And I had John's phone, and they had it for a while. They know who gave it to him. They know where he got it from. And these people still walk the streets. And I know John didn't want to die. That's not what he wanted. He was just looking for a Xanax, and took it, ended his life. He passed away on April 4th, 2022. Again, I had just gotten him home, so I hadn't even had him home 6 months. He passed away. He has 3 kids, a son and 2 daughters. John, he struggled a lot.
Do you get to see your grandchildren?
2 of them, yes, I do. And that's hard, being a grandparent and John not being here, because he's not here and I can't do anything. But yes, his son Ezekiel and his baby daughter that he didn't get to meet. I do get to talk to them and see them, and it's hard sometimes to see him because his son looks so much like him, and John loved his kids, and I wish I would have known that he was struggling. Maybe I could have done something. Maybe I could have helped. Maybe I could have, did something. He was a good kid. He had some issues.
Had some issues and didn't always make right choices. I mean,
Right.
that's not unique. That happens.
So John's case, I got kicked out of the police department because I was up there all the time. They didn't really like me after a while. They didn't know what Narcan was. I became like this person that wanted to try to save someone else's kid because my son, I couldn't. I took Narcan up there. I did all kinds of stuff. They didn't know what Narcan was. They went and talked to these kids, these adults that were John's friends. They lied to me and told me that they had no reason to believe that none of them had did it because they had talked to them. Out of the 5, one of them they did not talk to, and he had been waiting for them to show up. This has completely changed my life. It has robbed my kids of me being their mother too. It's completely changed me in every way.
Do you think that this tragedy has affected your other children to make them hypersensitive to the fact that you cannot do drugs, you will die?
Yes.
Okay. So at least they are aware of what led to it and making sure that they don't make that same mistake. Is that a fair assessment?
Correct.
That's good.
John's cousins too. I've talked to them and trying to figure out a little bit more about John. They were also, experimenting, and they don't do it. They're scared to do it, and I'm glad anytime that I'm around them, I'm always telling them. But I miss my kiddo a lot.
Well, good for you that you're trying to reach out to others and warn them, because fentanyl is it's just an evil killer. People don't know it's even there. And then it steals your child.
Yeah, it does. It's scary. It really is. And, even with my grandkids growing up, like I stay on edge, just wondering what it's going to be like when they grow up. We don't live too far from El Paso, the border. I have actually have become like a book of fentanyl. Like I have, like the knowledge. I've had to learn it. There's a few moms that have just, they inspire me. They help me. It's really scary. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know what you're taking, drinks, marijuana, everything. It's not safe. It's not safe to be a teenager. I mean, it's a scary world. Yeah. And one of the things that I do is I rescue dogs. John loved dogs. He had a dog named Faith, and that was his pride and joy. He loved her. We ended up having to put her down. She got cancer. But so I have a galore of dogs, like 12, 13, 14, 15. People think I'm crazy, and I probably am. But it's kind of like my therapy. And I kind of feel close to John that way. And I help with rescues.
I have done a number of interviews with other moms from Lost Voices, and most all of them have some form of outlet for their grief, whether it's dog rescue or starting, an awareness group in their area. They all seem to have some form of outlet for their grief that's positive. And I hate the grief that you go through, but I do like the fact that you have a positive that you are using that for.
I try. I really do. I have my moments. I have my days. First year was really hard. It was really, really hard. I didn't know who I was anymore. But with Lost Voices, Sarah has she's one of the moderators. She's actually been phenomenal. She has helped me in more ways than anything. I don't want this for another parent. I don't want another parent to have to feel what we feel every single day. So
April was in DC testifying in a proceeding a week or so ago, and I saw an interview on Fox News, and she said, "We are tired of having funerals." And I thought, boy, that is well put. That's a great way to put that. We are tired of having funerals.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to
add? John, he passed away in Big Spring. That's where I was actually born and raised. So he's buried there at his resting place. Where was I going with that? My brain just he passed away there. He was born in Omaha, Nebraska. But that's where he had lived, and he had a lot of friends there, certain friends. He does have one best friend that goes out there, and he cleans my son's grave. He cleans his headstone, and they've been very close since they were little. But it kind of brings me a little comfort, having him. My youngest lives in Colorado. My daughter lives in Big Spring too. But yeah, that's where he's buried at. And that's a tough one too, having to say that my son's in a grave.
Well, I don't think any parent is ever prepared for that word. They don't expect to lose a child. You expect to lose parents and siblings. You don't expect to lose your child.
Right. And, with that, losing a child, I had went to go see a doctor because I just didn't know how to deal with it. They were wanting to put me on medication. I have not taken any medication for the fear of getting addicted to a pill. So I have actually, in my journey, I have accepted it. I have made myself, because I have to. In the beginning, I tried to just say he was on vacation, and that was not a good idea for me to do that, because I was expecting him to come through the door. But I didn't take anything at all. I'm going through it. I go through the motions of it, and I allow myself to go through it, to feel it, so that I know.
Well, I'm not a therapist, but that sounds like a very healthy way to deal with it.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Bonnie, you have been awesome. I thank you so much for coming on with us and sharing your story. It's been hard to watch your pain, but I thank you for sharing JC's story and your story. So we appreciate it, and hopefully we maybe we'll connect again before long.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.